So as always, the Water Ambassador Program is a partnership program between Martin County and the University of Florida IFAS Extension. We are down to our last 5 webinars of the 2021 series. The next webinar on June 15th is Protecting Florida's Coral Reefs with FAU's Josh Voss. And you can see the other webinars coming up after that. We have talk from the Department of Health about Florida Healthy Beaches program, the Mangrove Restoration Project in Jensen Beach on July 27th, and then the Clam Restoration Project in the Indian River Lagoon on August 10th by UF's Todd Osborne. As always, Vincent and I will put the registration links into the chat for you, as well as the link to be able to see all of the recordings from this and the previous webinars. So just to real quickly go through, you all are muted right now and your video should be off. You do have the ability to turn your video on, but we suggest that if you're having bandwidth issues, you keep it closed because it does help. You can see who's participating today by clicking on the participant link, and you can see the names of everyone participating. We ask that you use the chat box for all of your questions, and we will hold them to the end, at which point we will discuss them. And if you need to leave at any time, click the bottom red Leave Meeting button. And for best viewing, we suggest you use the side-by-side mode. This allows you to see both the presentation and the speaker at the same time. We will be recording this. You can use this link. We'll also put the link in the chat box, or you can just Google Martin County Sea Grant and it'll pull up the page for you. Each of the recordings are listed by date as well as topic on the right-hand side of the web page. And just one reminder again to please use the chat feature to ask your questions, which we will go at the end. So we are pleased, back by popular demand, we are pleased to present Dr. Lisa Soto. Lisa is the Executive Director for the Marine Resources Council. She's also adjunct faculty at FIT. Lisa grew up in South Florida and completed her bachelor's degree at Florida State. Following that, she moved to Brevard County to help protect and preserve the beauty of the area. Lisa received a doctorate from UCF with an expertise in urban ecology. Her research focuses on groundwater impacts to the lagoon, muck management strategy, fertilizer, and alternative landscapes. Lisa has worked in the area for over 20 years to improve Florida's water quality. She loves the water and exploring new ecosystems in Florida and around the world, and we are really pleased to have her back for the start of hurricane season and the wet season to speak very topically about the Be Floridian Now program. So thank you, Lisa, for joining us again.
Thank you.
At this point, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, I'm going to go to my PowerPoint screen. Can you see it?
Yes, looks great.
Okay, excellent. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me back. Thank you for your awesome seminar presentations. I'm excited to get to hear Todd Osborne's results of the Super Clam project that he's doing up here at our end of the lagoon. Hopefully I can attend in August and get to hear Todd. That's been an exciting effort up here. We don't, up here where our water quality is really suffering and we have no seagrasses and certainly have no clams. And so it'd be exciting if we can figure out a way to get super clams up here at this end of the lagoon. It would be helpful. So anyway, excited about hearing what Todd has to say. And I'm glad that you all are here to hear what I have to say today. Yes, June 1st, I mean, the rain started almost right on cue. Be Floridian Now is a program specifically to remind people about fertilizer ordinances and fertilizer protections that have been put into place. I'm going to give you a little overview today of the program and I'll share a little bit of the research that I've done in the past to try to understand really the complexity of who we're talking to with fertilizer information. Fertilizer is not a topic that is really keen on everybody else's mind, on everybody's, dinner topic agenda. So it is one of those behaviors you have to constantly remind people about, because if they're doing it, they might be doing it once a year, twice a year, once every other year. They are not going to be remembering from one year to the next about the ordinances and about the need to do certain things to protect our waterways and the aquifer from being polluted by fertilizers. So that's where this campaign really comes from. It's meant to be it's a social marketing endeavor. It was heavily researched on the West Coast before it was brought over here. But I'm happy to share, and I look forward to your questions at the end. And also, hopefully we can continue to work together to affect a change in fertilizer use in the state of Florida. So Be Floridian Now came from the West Coast. It's not switching. Oh, there it goes. And there are a bunch of ordinances that have passed on the East Coast now. I think about 42 of the 44 municipalities in the Lagoon watershed have passed fertilizer ordinances that are determined to be stronger than the model ordinance of the state. The state did pass a model ordinance, and then there are actually over 100 now local communities that have passed ordinances that were stronger than the state ordinance. Mostly because of the fact that they have a restricted season, and that restricted season varies, but for the most municipalities, it's from June 1 to September 30. It's during those rainiest months of the year that you cannot apply nitrogenous fertilizers that have nitrogen in it, to your lawn, because nitrogen is very water soluble and it will easily wash away and down the storm drain or wash right through the sandy soil and into the groundwater. So that's the reason why this seasonal restriction, as it's been called, restricts the use of nitrogen on the lawn from June 1 to September 30. So we just started our restriction season. So anybody that you see out there fertilizing, you can ask them the question, are you applying nitrogen right now? Because it's against the law. Those laws also restrict the use of phosphorus any time of the year. So no P can be applied to the lawn unless you do a soil test that proves that it's needed. And we're all fortunate to have IFAS extension offices near us in our counties, and you can take your soil there to get an easy test to determine whether or not phosphorus is needed. If it's not needed, you cannot apply it. You have to prove it's needed. And really in our state, it's unusual to need phosphorus because we are a phosphate mining state and we have very phosphate rich soils. The other component of the ordinance is this 50% slow release. We recognize, and this is another area for education, that figuring out if it's 50% slow release is not easy for most people. So 50% slow release and must be applied the rest of the year. So October to May, if you're going to apply nitrogen, it has to be 50% slow release by law. And then all of the ordinances establish a fertilizer-free setback from water bodies. And those vary tremendously from 10 feet to 25 feet to anything east of Riverside Drive. So different cities have different extents of how far that setback needs to be from a water body. And then different cities define that water body as could be a storm drain, could be a retention pond, it could be an actual canal, could be the Indian River Lagoon. And so the different ordinances have set different criteria for how they establish that setback, how big that area needs to be, that buffer area, and how they define a water body. All the ordinances are on the Be Floridian Now website. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about the website, but Be Floridian Now is about raising awareness about fertilizer ordinances where it is, pretty much the same in all of our communities, except for this fertilizer-free area, and getting the message out there. So the Be Floridian Now website is really a hub, a library, a resource for people to go and grab stuff that they might need to use in their community to affect a change really in awareness of ordinances. I jokingly say that just because an ordinance passes into county commission or the city council doesn't mean anybody knows it exists. It's sort of like that joke of if a tree falls in the woods, nobody hears it, did it actually happen? Well, if an ordinance passes in city council and nobody knows it, did it really happen? You need to get the message out, let people know they exist, know what those ordinances contain, and then start working towards behavior change, which is a whole nother ball of wax. The goals are simple. You all are familiar with why we need to have these types of programs. We're trying to get people to comply with their fertilizer ordinances, mostly that whole summer ban. We're trying to teach people how to figure out the 50% slow release, which is not easy, especially for people who hate math. And then really, ultimately, the goal is to try to encourage a movement, a landscape revolution, which I'm going to get into more in a little bit, movement from this monoculture, hyper green, unsustainable landscape into something that's more sustainable, something that's Florida friendly, something that's native, something that doesn't need a bunch of water and chemicals to keep it alive. And so that's what we're trying to do. Be Floridian Now was launched here on the East Coast in 2015. It started over on the West Coast of Florida in about 2011. We let them do all of the research to prove how to do it, and we just pretty much adopted what they were implementing over on the other coast through the Tampa Bay Estuary Program. I'm happy to say that MRC and Tampa Bay Estuary Program have been in communications this year to solidify our efforts and bring this into a statewide coastal community program. Benefits are clear. We'll have less nutrients in the water, especially during the rainy season, which is when we have these algae blooms, because the temperature is ripe for algae. We don't want to be putting a bunch of nutrients in the water when the algae are ready to bloom. We're just going to feed these algal blooms that will go on and on. Reduce nutrients in the stormwater runoff, reduce nutrients in groundwater. It's going to be improved water quality for the lagoon and its tributaries, and certainly the St. Lucie estuary as well. We really want to encourage the diversity in the landscape. So trying to get away from the monoculture and just raise awareness about the land-water connection that we all are hyper aware of, that so few people are. You know, the regular public really just does not see their connection, and that what they're doing on the landscape is having a profound impact on our water. The audiences, according to the research that was done on the East Coast, there really are women, which is not, I think, intuitive, but what we're trying to reach with Be Floridian Now are women aged 35 to 50. We're looking for people who are do-it-yourselfers, who are applying their own fertilizers and doing their own landscaping for the most part. And the best place we found to reach them was at the retail outlets. So that was part of the research, was at the point of purchase, which makes perfect sense. That's when you want to affect the change. Consumers looking for fertilizers, that's where you can affect the best change in their selection. The elements of the approach, and these were tested on the West Coast, are about having a good time. You know, you move to Florida because you love the water. So why not have a landscape at your yard that's going to protect your fun, protect your water, and encouraging people to enjoy the water instead of spending the weekend in their yard, you know, constantly fertilizing and mowing. So taking the summer off to enjoy yourself. And by the way, you also can't fertilize right now. So less fertilizer equals cleaner water equals more fun is kind of the major theme. And then using these flamingos, which, you know, we now know that flamingos are determined to be a native species, but we always jokingly said that the yard flamingo was always a native species of Florida. But the flamingos are fun. And if you put them out in front of a bank, people will approach your table and go, why all the flamingos? Or did you win the lottery? We did get that one once. But the flamingos were really the front piece to encourage people to come and ask questions. This looks like a good time. Why do people have all these flamingos? And you could take that fun from there. We've painted flamingos. We've raffled off flamingos. We've done flamingo parades in downtown Stewart, and had businesses adopt beautiful flamingos. So the flamingo theme makes it really easy to have a good time with your awareness campaign. So that's one of the key approaches. Again, you know, following through with like the water is something to enjoy, not pollute concept. We created different billboards to be shown at different times of the year. These, again, were shown down in Martin County and in Stewart. So the summer one is Summer is Coming, which, you know, sort of like winter is coming in Game of Thrones, except it's summer here in Florida. But summer's coming, you know, fertilize before the rainy season, or if you're going to fertilize, you know, use lagoon-friendly products and find out more. And then you are in the summer, so you don't fertilize. And now that summer's over, it's time to apply with some lagoon-friendly fertilizer products. Print and digital ads. We put ads in the TC Palm, got millions of views, of course. You know, newspapers are great for views. And then get a decent click-through rate through our TC Palm online ads. They were very effective. And then we put some like coupons in the newspaper like this: take the summer off from work coupon. And then, you know, instead of doing your yard work, you know, you're having a good time with the water instead of polluting it with fertilizer. So little reminders of different kinds. You know, again, like I mentioned, we know this is a repeated behavior that's infrequent, which means you need to remind people all the time or they're going to forget. So this is one of the reminders that we had printed. I think these are still in the retail stores, hopefully, unless they're gone by now. We printed about 75,000 of them and put them in books, and people would hang them from the racks of the retail store. One side talks about the fertilizer ordinances. The other side talks about how do you read a fertilizer bag to figure out if it's 50% slow release. These were up for years. We kept replacing them in the retail stores. If they're missing, if you happen to be at a retail store and you don't see something like this, we may have replacements. So if people want more, we can send them down there if they're hanging them in their stores. They are helpful in educating people about the 50% slow release calculation in particular. And then this year, we're really focusing in Martin County on the retail education, because we know that that point of sale is really important. It's key to educating the consumer about the ordinances. So we want the retail salespeople to be familiar and very confident with their understanding of the ordinance so they can speak about it intelligently and answer people's questions. And really, ideally, we want them to discourage people from buying the illegal products in the during the seasonal restriction. So, unfortunately, we cannot prevent people from selling the illegal product during the summer season. That has been preempted at the state level. The only county that was able to get that done was Pinellas. And as soon as they did it, the lobbyists for really the agrochemical companies that support turf and its fertilizer shut that down. They're like, you will not prevent the sale of fertilizer in the state of Florida. They interpreted pulling illegal products off the shelves as preventing the sale of fertilizer in Florida. And so that was preempted. So we cannot pull fertilizer off the shelves in any other county except Pinellas. So all we can do is try to change behavior at the point of sale. If we can get the salesman to admit that what they're selling is illegal, that would be a huge step. If we can get them to pull it off the shelves voluntarily, that would be an even huger step. So anyway, we're focusing this year down in Martin County on educating the retailers, educating the nursery people down there, your big box stores down there, any kind of a hardware store that's selling fertilizer. Our team is down there working with people. If you all know, and you're down there, so if you know a good store that you think is going to be a great partner in this project, please reach out to us, and we're going to promote them. We're going to do a big promotional media event and promote those retailers, those nurserymen and those fertilizer retailers who are really trying to implement this change, trying to change fertilizer sales, trying to change that landscape revolution, doing the right thing for our waterways and our estuaries. So this is a new sign. Signs are required by law in Martin County. So we're printing it in bright orange and red so it sticks out from the fertilizer bags that tend to be blue and green. We want it to be obvious on the shelf as something different. And it says, again, what does the law entail? And then how do you need to be looking for that 50% slow release. I'm going to try to do this little video real quick, so bear with me. I think I have to switch my screen and then share it again. But this is, we just finished this training video. This is targeted for the fertilizer salespeople. So this is a video to train your big box employees, your nursery employees, your hardware store employees in the landscaping section, so they're familiar with our ordinances. So I think if I just go over here, we have to stop share and then reshare. Share screen. It's over here. Can you guys see that? Yes? I can't see you.
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you. All right. You here?
The health of the St. Lucie River estuary and the Indian River Lagoon relies on you. This short video will help you help your customers do their part to protect the lagoon from further damage, and in due time, bring the lagoon back to a cleaner, healthier, natural treasure that the entire community can enjoy. You are important to this cause because you and your coworkers interact and are trusted by people who apply fertilizer themselves but may not be doing it properly. Poor fertilizer practices contribute to algae blooms and muck in the lagoon. Algae blooms cause fish kills, seagrass die-offs, aquatic animal deaths, and can even pose threats to human health. Martin County's lifestyle around the water are the heart and soul of our community. That's why the next few minutes are so important. Your sharing of this knowledge is a key to slowly but surely improving the health of the lagoon. Martin County mandates the hanging of this sign at eye level in your store and other garden centers and nurseries that sell fertilizer to the general public. We will highlight each item on the sign that you should be readily familiar with so you can answer all questions promptly, confidently, and with a glad you asked that question tone of voice. Protect Florida Fun. The following guidelines will help your customers enjoy all that Florida has to offer, while also protecting local waterways. First, never fertilize from June 1st to September 30th in Martin County. Also, never fertilize if rain or a tropical storm is in the forecast. Rainfall at any time of the year, whether from typical summer showers to tropical storms, will wash your fertilizer off your grass, down the storm drain, and into our waterways. The next section displays important information regarding fertilizer application outside of the ban. Scan the QR code with your phone for a quick list of fertilizers that comply with local ordinances, so you know what to identify on your shelves. Do not apply fertilizer within 25 feet of any body of water, including ditches, ponds, lakes, canals, rivers, the estuary, or even the lagoon itself. Remind your customers to always sweep up any fertilizer or other spills that may have ended up on the driveway, sidewalk, or road. Always choose fertilizer with 0 phosphorus. Show them the 3 digits on the bag so they will know what to look for. Phosphorus is noted in the middle. Most Florida soil is rich in phosphorus. Phosphorus is mined from Florida to fertilize crops in other states. Only add phosphorus if a soil or plant tissue test shows you need it. Always choose at least 50% slow-release nitrogen, unless it's at 0. If this label can't be located on the bag, show them how easy it is to calculate this number. If you and your customers like math, divide the slow-release nitrogen, sometimes listed as water-soluble nitrogen, by the total nitrogen listed on the bag. If it's greater than 0.50, it's the right fertilizer. But if you hate math, simply scan the QR code to check the list. These are the fertilizer basics for you to understand and share with your customers. Most people are very willing to learn from you and want to help restore and protect clean, clear, healthy water. If we all work together, we can inexpensively, dramatically, and effectively reduce thousands of tons of algae-feeding nutrients that enter the river, estuary, and lagoon each year from excess fertilizer. There are key points you can share with your customers. 1. Encourage them to blow their freshly mowed grass clippings back into their yard. Here's why. If they go down the storm drain, they can also cause algae blooms and muck to accumulate in the lagoon. And grass clippings are a natural, beneficial organic fertilizer that's actually good for their yard. 2. If they live in a neighborhood that has reclaimed water as a resource for irrigation, tell them that reclaimed water already contains nitrogen. They may not need to add much or any nitrogen. 3. If a customer asks how to keep their lawn green throughout the summer months, tell them it is safe to apply summer-friendly lawn supplements composed of iron sulfate or chelated iron. Thank you for your kind attention. Let's all work together. You are on the front lines to help protect our lagoon. Remember to be Floridian now and protect Florida fun.
Yay. All right, stop. Like, how do I get back now? All right, share. I can do this. Oops. Okay. Can you guys see my PowerPoint?
We can see it. Yep. You just have to, oh, looks perfect.
We're good. All right. Thank you. So we just finished that video to train retailers. We're hoping that we can get them into stores. So if you know nursery people or retail educator, fertilizer salespeople that you think would be open to having their staffs and their people trained, it would be willing to show that it's a YouTube video. They could show it during the break. They could show it at one of their staff meetings. We could go in and present for them, however. So we're looking for partners down there in the industry that we can promote, because they're going to teach their people and embrace this program. The pledge is part of it, and those of you familiar with social marketing know that it's one of the tools that is used as a reminder prompt. Is you pledge. Once you pledge to do something, your likelihood to actually do it increases tremendously. So just pledging that they will pledge to be Floridian Now, that they'll pledge to skip fertilizer or whatever. We have a whole bunch of different types of pledge materials we get people to sign up for. And of course, initially it was just, I pledged to not apply lawn fertilizer in the summer. It was that initial summer pledge, or, I'm going to have fun this summer and not fertilize the lawn. There are a lot of other resources on the website. All of these things, like I said, are meant to be shared. This is a partnership, and I'll get to all the partners at the end. but we're developing these things together so we can share them together. So we're trying to keep it as general as possible, but we have articles. These are a couple of articles that could be used right now for either your HOA or for newsletter that you're doing and you want to remind people about the fertilizer ban. We've got articles that also are appropriate for the fall, what you want to do in the fall with your lawn or with your landscape. And then we have one in the winter. What do you want to do with your winter? So we have a series of articles that have been created by partners that are appropriate for different times of the year. They're on the website. Oops, I think I went the wrong way. And like you saw in the video, we've got this compliant fertilizer list initiated. It's constantly being updated as new products come on the market. But sometimes it's easier to just send people to a list than it is to teach them how to find 50% slow release. So, we're trying to create a list that they can access instead of having to do the math themselves, so to speak. So that's out on the website as well. We've got some awesome kids products, a little coloring book with a word search that has Flamingo as the character. And then the website is BeFloridianNow.org. Everything is out there. There's resources. We've linked in a lot of resources that exist that you all are, I'm sure, familiar with at the University of Florida. And the IFS Extension has some amazing resources, Florida Native Plant Society. And those, we're fortunate in Florida to have so many brilliant resources to really help with the transition. It's just a matter of getting the public to adapt it. We really need to start, like I said, a revolution. So I'm going to spend a couple of slides talking about the results of a survey. When we started the website, I guess it was about 2015, we had a pop-up survey that just collected five questions, and just to get a sense of who are these people using our website, how are they getting here, and so on. So I'm going to share a little bit of the results of those. So this is the latest. We actually have 645 responses, but these are people that came to the website, so they're not representative really of the public in general. But Be Floridian Now website visitors, 645, just asking the question, do you have a residential fertilizer ordinance in your city or county? The green bar, the green portion of the bar, the lower part of the bar, is those who said yes. So the people who were confident that they had an ordinance, or they guessed right. You can see just by looking at the green bar that Brevard County and Volusia County were higher. And if you do the stats, they are significantly higher than Martin and St. Lucie in their number of yeses. So there are more people in Brevard, but this is, and some question, it's the N, right? So the Indian River County, we don't have very many respondents in Indian River County, but we have as many in Martin as we do in Brevard, and yet Brevard is significantly higher. So we need to increase the Martin County awareness of the ordinance. So that's one of the things we want to see this bar start to go up in Martin County over the course of this year as we're working down there. And we really do need your help, because you all are down there all the time. Who fertilizes the lawn? We know this is really key to understanding how much fertilizer is being applied, is if it's you as an individual, or is it your professional landscaper? So again, there's no significant difference here, but you can see there's a difference. Those who fertilize themselves, there's a lot fewer people in Volusia County and Brevard County that fertilize themselves. There are a lot more professionals in Volusia and Brevard than there are in Martin and in Indian River, but Indian River again has a low N. But you can just see, who are we dealing with here? And I'm going to talk more about that as we go along. This is one of my favorite questions. How many times a year does someone apply fertilizer to the lawn? It gives you a sense of the number, the amount of pounds of nitrogen that are being applied, but you can kind of just get a sense of who's doing the high maintenance stuff and who's kind of just sitting back and letting their lawn survive or not. So this is the all combined data set, but 40% of people are having their lawn fertilized about 2 times, which is typical. That is your state average. So that's what we would expect to see. And it's interesting to know when those 2 times are. There's always these strange cats down at the end here, like 1% or 2% of respondents will always say that they fertilize more than once a month, 12 or 13 times a year. I actually went and interviewed one of those people, and he was an old guy with looked more like a flour sifter fertilizer applicator. So he wasn't exactly fertilizing his entire lawn. He was going around with his little flower sifter once a week and putting a portion of fertilizer on a portion of his lawn. And he counted that as 54 times a year. I had to go meet him personally because I couldn't believe it existed. So anyway, this is breaking down that same question across counties. So you can see what the mean is and what is the average number of times people are applying per year. Remember, 2 is the hot number, but you can see in Palm Beach and Martin County, you're approaching 4 times a year versus Volusia, you know, it's high. St. Lucie, 4.83 times per year. We want to see those numbers change. And then of course, this is really key. When are you applying? When do you think it's a good idea to apply fertilizer? Because these are our blackout months, June, July, August, and September. And they are lower than the other months. So that's good news. We do have a Volusia County June, 14%. That's significantly higher than all the rest. So Volusia County needs to think about the seasonal restriction and how they can get the word out better. I hope you guys can still hear me. It just started pouring here. Speaking of the rainy season, kind of hard to hear.
You sound great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And then, but just as a comparison, this is a West Coast study. These were 3 counties over on the West Coast, data that were collected in 2013. And you can see the June, July, August, September numbers, percentages of people who responded that these are the months that they fertilize are way higher on that coast than they are on our coast. So it's always nice to kind of have a comparison, you know, in other parts of the country to kind of see where you fall in. This Palm Beach County, July 30% is kind of a scary number. But other than that, it's, you know, basically the counties are, you know, Indian River County, 0% will fertilize, say it's a good idea, 17% in July. But this is what we want to see, right? We want to see really low numbers in June, July, August, and September. They're getting there. All right, so who do we target and how do we deal with this situation? We really need to start a landscape revolution. And I'm going to say, and I think this is pretty intuitive, but, you know, it's nice when the science actually lines up with common sense. So we've got plenty of evidence to suggest that HOAs and homeowners that live in HOAs are definitely our polluting target. These are the folks who are driven externally by normative pressure to maintain a landscape that is agreeable to the entire community. So regardless of their individual preferences, their individual value system, their belief structure, if they live in an HOA, they're going to fertilize at a higher rate than somebody who does not live in an HOA, independent of all of those things. So in other words, somebody could be a hardcore environmentalist, move into an HOA and fertilize their lawn because they feel a normative pressure to do that, even though they know it's bad for the environment. These are, and this is some of the data to prove it, to just make that case. And like I said, it's pretty darn intuitive. So I don't even know why one has to make a case, but it's clear, it's written in statistics and significant differences all over the place. So these are Wekiva data, and 740 people were interviewed via telephone. You can see right here, just in the fertilizer frequency, that the significant difference in the number of times, just the number of times somebody's going out and applying something to the lawn is less than half for people living in a non-HOA versus an HOA. And these are, like I mentioned, we collected behavior, belief, value data, you know, all kinds of house age data. This is something that holds true, HOA versus non-HOA, independent of all of those things. You can see that people in HOAs also the other thing they tend to do in HOA is they hook their lawn up to an automatic system and then they walk away. So they want to put it on a professional landscape regime, an automatic sprinkler. You know, they pretty much want to turn over their HOA requirement to somebody else. So you have the liability of dealing with my HOA requirement now, Mr. Professional Landscaper. So that's part of the problem with HOAs, is that the actual homeowner has waived responsibility because he doesn't want to deal with the HOA liability issue, the possibility that they're going to fine him or her, or they're going to call to question their landscaping design or whatever. So they tend to just turn it over to your professional landscaper, which is the other huge variable associated with high maintenance regimes. Is you hire a professional, he's going to apply or she's going to apply way more fertilizer than the typical homeowner. So HOA, fertilizer frequency again. So this one proves what I just said. This is the model that shows that this is the percentage of the number of times fertilizer is applied in the last 12 months. This is how much professional fertilizer influences this number. So 46% of the variance associated with this variable, the number of times somebody applies fertilizer, is explained by the fact that it's a professional doing it. So even with the year built and the age, how long somebody had been a resident of the HOA, this still holds true. This is still the most powerful predictor of heavy fertilizer use. This is a different model. This is actually statewide data. Oopsie, I think I just messed it up. These are statewide data. It says the same thing. Like I said, I've done years and years and years and years of research on the behavior. How do you affect a change, a landscape revolution? We need a landscape revolution. How do we make it happen? Well, you can't do it down here. So this is called the, what is it called? The normative action theory. I think something like that. Does it say down here? Yeah, I forget all my good theory names. But this is the normative range. So this is that normative pressure. This is social pressure that we pretend we never feel. That is a way more powerful influencer on high maintenance landscaping than these are personal norms, personal values. So if a person is a gardener, actually they're more likely, this is barely insignificant. It's 0.05 would be significant influence, but the enjoying gardening, those people actually apply more stuff to the lawn than people who don't enjoy gardening, which kind of makes sense. But down here we've got conservation minded people who are aware of the environmental consequences, and they have a negative, they have a negative relationship, meaning that people that are typically conservation minded are going to not apply so much stuff to the lawn. So that's good. That all makes sense. And then this one makes sense. If maintenance is expensive to you, you're not going to do it a lot of it. So this makes perfect sense. Inexpensive maintenance, you have less maintenance intensity. But again, up here, we're looking at is up here is the big numbers, the strong statistical association is with this normative pressure that people, regardless of this, if they're inside an HOA, they're going to maintain their lawn with more chemicals. And this is landscape maintenance intensity. And this study was a measure of everything they apply: fertilizer, pesticides, and herbicides. So it's a landscape maintenance intensity index, which gives you a more rich series of variables to work with. So all of that to say, we need to start a landscape revolution. And where do we start? We start with you. I think down in Martin County is where we need to start this. So let's do it this way. Let's change HOA rules. So I think you might be familiar with, a statute was passed years ago, I'm going to say in the early aughts, that doesn't allow, it says that HOAs cannot prevent their residents from implementing Florida-friendly landscaping. The purpose of the provision was water conservation. And so the interpretation of the provision by local judges is really, really varies. And unfortunately, in some instances, it has not protected those homeowners from getting sued by their HOA for a covenant violation. So there have been times where homeowners have ripped out all their turf grass and put in a Florida-friendly lawn and drip irrigation and did a Florida-friendly landscape, with all these beautiful flowers, and gotten sued by their HOA and lost. And what's the worst part of that is that the homeowner then has to pay not only his own attorney fees, but he has to also pay the HOA's attorney fees. So in a lot of those cases, as soon as the HOA starts fighting back with their attorney, the homeowner walks away. So the law passed, but it needs to be cleaned up. And we're actually working with the Florida Bar Association this year to try and clean it up, in the hopes that, it's a little scary to bring any law associated with landscaping up to the state, because they'll preempt everybody and say, oh, by the way, never mind, we're going to do away with that law and preempt everybody from doing it. Hopefully not. But what we want is them to put a neat bow around this so that it's interpreted not only as a water conservation law, but it's also a habitat creation law, a water quality protection law, and it can be interpreted in the full suite of what Florida-friendly really encompasses. So we're hoping that that some modifications are made to that law without having to open it back up again, just to make it stronger and more clear for interpretation. So we have that. We do have it. It works sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. We need to clean it up a bit. But we have HOA covenant model examples that came out of University of Florida's Conservation Law Clinic. So if you know an HOA that's thinking about changing their covenants, we've got some beautiful examples the UF has already put out that they can adopt instead of pretty much getting the ones they were stuck with by the developer. And I mean, other than that, it's really better to start from the bottom up. With HOAs, when you talk about a revolution, there's kind of it's a bottom up thing, right? A revolution starts from the bottom, and work with them, because if you can get them to agree that what you're proposing is something that still maintains what they were trying to accomplish with their covenants, mostly property values, continuity, appeal, curb appeal, all those things, that you can have that while having something that's also going to save water and water quality, then you can get it done. And that's what I'm going to show you now, is we've actually did that in Sarasota. They need to be accommodated with landscape designs, because a lot of these HOAs will require a landscape review board where you have to have a landscape design. You need to train the folks, and then they need help installing. And and the examples of the covenants, I wrote ordinances, but what I meant was examples of HOA covenants that they could adopt. And the Conservation Law Clinic there at UF has fabulous examples. We did this in Sarasota. We worked with 11 homeowners that were in a deed restricted HOA. So we had to go to the HOA president. We had to create, and we worked with University of Florida landscape architect, and she created these beautiful designs. We took them, they had to go through the architectural review process. You will notice that this is one of the 11 designs. We were focusing in the front yard because we wanted to be in the face of the HOA and also in the face of the community. We were hoping to start a normative change. If we'd stayed longer, we probably would have, because as we were working through this, we got more and more and more people who wanted to do it. And when they saw how beautiful they were, then they came forward and wanted to do their lawns as well, their front yards as well. But this need to have a landscape design can be a real barrier for a homeowner who just wants to go and plant some more native plants in their front yard. Well, now they got to go find a landscape architect or somebody who can create a design that would be enough to take to their review board. It needs to have enough information that the landscape review board at the HOA can look at it, visualize it, and approve it. So that can be a real barrier. So we have examples of landscape designs. They don't work everywhere. So University of Florida has some, Florida Native Plant Society has some. There are examples out there. Installation, we needed to assist the homeowners, pretty much installed their own yards. We just had volunteers assist, or everybody kind of helped each other. But it was, the hard part, of course, the scary part, and we turned it into a big party, was everybody killing their lawn. It was a big, it was really a scary moment where people were like, they almost balked for a second. It's like, you guys aren't going to do it. But we did it. So we killed everybody's lawn. We tore it all out. We started planting some beautiful plants. We taught them all about the different plants at workshops so they could pick plants that they really wanted. Which pollinators did they want to attract? Which plants did they want near their front door? How did they want, color scheme did they want? What type of textures did they want? So it was really phenomenal. And then we got to work with neighbors next door to each other. So we got to to landscape between the houses and make these little pathways, and it really came out nice. But this one in particular, I thought this was just as we were leaving. We were there for 3 years, and it's like those first 2 years, the landscapes aren't really filling in. So finally in year 3, we went back and checked out this house. It just looked fantastic. It was all starting to grow back in again. Everything was flowering, and it's that time of the year, right, when the gaillardias are in bloom and the knockout roses are going off, and it was looked beautiful. While we were there, we did some soil tests just to get a sense of how much of a difference is there between the grass part and the ornamental part of the lawnscape. And this was nitrate, and it was obviously a significant difference between the natural area. The natural portion of the lawn is that tiny little bar down at the left. The turf which was heavily fertilized, and then the ornamental beds, and you could see the difference in nitrate. So this is nitrate in soil, but at 9 parts per million, which is pretty darn high when you consider if it was at 10 in groundwater, it would be exceeding the drinking water standards. So pretty high nitrate levels in the turf area versus the ornamental, and just another indication that, you know, we need to get off of, so we need to stop this turf obsession and putting nitrogen on the turf grass, you know, all the time, all year. So these are the partners. We just added the city of Miami Beach. It's really exciting that, and it was really when they came on board that I reached across the state back to our partners at Tampa Bay Estuary Program and said, hey, we know we're pretty much covered almost the entire east coast of Florida. You guys got the west coast. We should turn this into a statewide program. And so we're moving in that direction. But it's really just about sharing the resources so that anybody can implement this where it makes sense for them. If you need to, like the Miami Beach, really, they need to redesign things to look like Biscayne Bay. They need to translate things into Spanish and Haitian French. They need to, you know, they need to modify the materials to look like South Beach or look like Miami Beach. So they're going to invest some money to make it look like Miami Beach. But anywhere, you know, in the lagoon, you know, you can take what we have, modify the background, you know, make subtle changes to it, still splashy, fun flamingos, but it's got the picture of your waterway in it instead of the picture of Miami Beach or the picture of the North Lagoon. You want to make things custom and look like your community, but we can still share a lot of the meat and potatoes here. We can just add whatever spice you want to make it good. And that's all I got. So I appreciate your being here today. I invite you to join the flock, and welcome to take any questions.
Great, thank you. We have a couple questions in the chat box. I encourage people to write more in. While we're doing that, I'm gonna put up our evaluation poll, which you all should be familiar with by now.
So I get to evaluate myself.
Sure.
I'm brilliant.
Evaluation for us to see what topics everyone likes. The first question from David asks, how cooperative are Lowe's and Home Depot and the big box stores in removing product from the shelves?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it's kind of like every time I go talk to the big box stores, I have to start over, because you know you get somebody and then they say yes, and then you go back and that guy's not there anymore. You have to kind of go back and forth. So when we first started this in 2015, we went to corporate. We went to Lowe's and Home Depot corporate. I think they're both in Georgia, if I remember correctly. And we got the letter from corporate. And when we had the letter from corporate, that made a huge difference. We could walk in with a letter from corporate and say, thou shalt do this. Or we didn't say it like that. We would say it nicely, like, corporate has agreed to be a partner in this effort. And, we really need your store to commit. But that helped a lot. We may have to do that again. So currently, my team's gone down and they got the kind of the same story from the big box stores. They got corporate would have to agree before we would do that. So we can do that again. We can start over. I mean, it took like a year the last time to get that letter from corporate, but it might be that that's what it takes. I was hoping that just the, it's been a long time. It's been 6 years. You would think that the retailers would be knowledgeable about this by now, and they'd be more amenable to agreeing and being partners. But like I said, I think in the big box stores, the turnover is so high that you're kind of dealing with a new person every time you walk in. We've had outrageous response. I mean, just really positive outpouring of response from the nurserymen and the little stores in Martin County. I mean, those folks have been outstanding. I mean, they came on board, they started sending us their signs, that they're making their own signs, and hanging them on their own shelves. So they're kind of the easy ones to get to buy in. But the big box stores, like I said, we may have to start again at corporate and get the letter and work their way down. No, you're absolutely right. No, they don't want to. They would be in trouble with the big fertilizer producers if they start pulling the products from the shelves or start even moving it down, right? So the big box stores are the ones who are probably under the gun the most from the chemical company, agrochemical conglomerate, to get the product sold. Versus your mom and pop place, I doubt that, those types of huge fertilizer pushers, as I call them, distributors really are paying that much attention to Joe's nursery shop, But yeah, no, it's a good point. It's a great question. And we're probably going to have to start over with corporate to get the signs. Martin County, we can force them. It's a law, but you hate to, I kind of hate to force somebody to do it. Hopefully they'll just adopt it, but we can say, you don't have a choice. You have to put the sign up. But hopefully we won't have to.
And similarly, sorry about that. How cooperative are typical HOAs in agreeing to adopt sensible standards, even though many people just want to have a gorgeous lawn?
Yeah, it depends. And so it's like saying how, so it depends on the HOA. We were really fortunate, and I'm not saying, so when I say go after the HOAs and start a landscape revolution, I don't mean like we're going to get this done tomorrow. I'm saying like we've been trying to do this for 20 years and it's going to take a long time. It's a chiseling effect, but we need to keep doing it. So the way we did it was we found one and we stayed there for 3 years. So that was one HOA. So that's what it's going to take. It's going to almost take like one entity picks one HOA, and it'd be great if you picked a giant one like Viera, right? So if somebody gave me $250,000, I would go do this in Viera and do all of the research and everything. But so find a giant one and work with that entity for however long it takes to get them to change covenant. So how likely are they, or how, I don't, we haven't done the every HOA in the state of Florida research to figure out how likely it is to happen. But there are some. The one that we picked was willing to work with us. They were willing to let us go in and rip out people's yards. They were willing to let us do soil testing and interviews and surveys and harass people for 3 years, and really evaluate the effectiveness of the effort. But so one will do it for sure. I know there are others that will do it. So you almost, it needs to be your HOA or somebody that that's an HOA president that's willing to entertain it, an HOA that's on the water. It's, they exist. I don't know much about the HOAs down there. But University of Florida has done some really good HOA research. I think Lisa, you might have done some. Did you do some? You, Paul? Anyway, there's some really
I can't find my mute. Yeah, Dr. Paul Monahan has done a lot of research working with HOAs, and it's the same social media, social marketing. I have not.
Okay.
Terry asked about where we get fertilizer ordinances for Palm Beach County, and I will address that there. On the UF website, we actually have a list of all of the fertilizer ordinances on the state. So I'll work on getting that in the chat box. And I see that Vincent has populated a lot of the fertilizer ordinances for Martin and St. Lucie counties thus far. Rosemary asks, who do we have them contact here in Martin County? Rosemary, can you elaborate on what you mean contact about?
Who contact?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking Rosemary to elaborate. If you have, feel free to unmute yourself, Rosemary, if you have a microphone. An HOA president for Florida Landscape, she says.
Oh, who would I have an HOA president for Florida Landscaping contact?
Yes. She's saying yes. I guess if someone is interested in having their HOA do what the work with you all.
Okay. Yeah. So they could contact me. I'm going to send them probably to Diane Hughes. Yeah, we don't have the funding that we got this year is for retail store education. So the HOA focus is a future endeavor. We're not doing yet. Maybe you guys want to do it, or Martin County might want to do it. But I do think that HOAs are going to be key to changing the landscape revolution. And if we can get going on that, that'd be great.
Okay, great.
They could also, sorry,
Sorry, Vincent.
Lisa, they could also contact Martin County Extension as far as, they could talk about Florida-friendly landscaping and that as well, within Martin
Good.
County. And probably extension offices in other counties as well.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Craig asks, the signs, coupons, training videos, everything is great. Can they be provided to other areas and modified for their use? And who do we contact?
Yes is the easy answer. And it's because it depends on what it is. So almost everything I think is out on the website. And then the video just launched. So if Martin County paid for it. So if they are okay with me sharing it, I think then I can send it to you. Actually, I can't. It's on like YouTube. I think I can just send you the link and you can go download it. I think is how we got it. But sure, everything is shareable. I'm sorry I didn't put my email up here on the final slide. It's my first name is LEESA and then at MRCIRL, like Marine Resources Council, Indian River Lagoon, mrcirl.org. Just shoot me an email and I can point you in that direction. And I'm sorry I didn't put the email on the last slide.
Okay, Vincent and I both typed it in, so now you're gonna get lots of
Thank
emails.
you.
Lisa, there was one question from Susan.
Oh, did I miss it? Okay, if you have it available, feel free to read it. Vincent.
Yeah. So Susan Hamburger writes, would the threat of a boycott using social media get the point across to the big box retailers not to put fertilizers on the shelves for sale June through November? They don't have Christmas decorations out for sale in the summer, so why fertilizers?
I agree. What was the first part of what was the threat?
Would the threat of a boycott using social media get the point across to the big box retailers?
Maybe. It depends on who's on. I don't know what social media you're talking about, but
yeah,
there's supposed to be, yeah. So it's kind of, I try to do the peer pressure the other way. Like we're going to promote you for doing the right thing, not lambast you for doing the wrong thing. But it might work. So what I was thinking about, like as far as your social media is, if social media is kind of limited by your friends, right? So you're really limited. You may have 1,000 of them, but they're all the people right around you. So they're going to be maybe the ones who aren't going to fertilize their lawn anyway. So what you want is people to boycott it that are fertilizing their lawn 12 times a month, those ones, the people who are fertilizing a lot, those are the ones that they're going to see. So there's a couple things, and I kind of threw two things at you. One is Be Floridian Now is really about the consumer. So that's your do-it-yourselfer person. And then at the end, I threw in the HOA person. They're not the do-it-yourselfer person. So you've got two audiences to think about. The people who are buying the product are do-it-yourselfers for the most part. The people at Lowe's, the people who are providing service to HOAs are not those people. They're getting their product from the pushers, like from the nitrogen, manufacturers that need to push it out into the environment.
Another thing. Sorry, Lisa. Another thing that I don't know if it's still in existence, but maybe this is for Susan just to think about. There was an organization a while ago called the Carrot Mob, and it was basically the reverse boycott, where they would patronize a business for doing the right thing.
Right
thing.
thing.
In this case, it was environmentally minded things, and that'd be another thing to think about. But also, not only the patronization, but the publicity around that, so that they get recognized. Another thing to think about.
Oh, I love that. And actually, I'm glad you brought that up, Vincent, because we're picking our nurseries that we want to promote down there, because like you said, like it's kind of the flip side is you just promote the heck out of the ones that are doing the right thing. And when we pick our nursery, and it's somebody's name, like, I'm not going to remember it. I don't want to say the wrong name, so forgive me. But anyway, we're picking our nursery now, and we really do want to use social media and try to get a flock of people to show up for this media event and promote the heck out of the fact that this nursery is doing the right thing with its landscaping materials, with the fertilizers that's selling, basically being a provider of the means to the landscape revolution. So that's what and then we'll promote the heck out of them. We'll do kind of the inverse, like Vincent was saying. We'll try to find those that are doing it right and really promote them and use them and encourage people to use them.
So it is 1 o'clock. I want to, for those who have to leave, I just want to say thank you for joining us for another Water Ambassador program, and for thank you, Lisa. We do have a couple more questions in the chat box. If you're able to stay, great. If not, then thank you for your time. We want to respect your time, and we will see you all on June 15th for our next presentation on corals. So we do have someone, Susan asks, do you have to leave, Lisa?
No, I'm good to stay. I'm good.
Okay. Susan asks about how to reach those people who buy fertilizers online. She says we have the Amazon phenomenon where people are buying everything online. So how do we reach those individuals?
Yeah, I have no idea.